Hey, welcome everybody to AI News and Gurus, the show for intelligent distributors. My name is Brian Hopkins. I am the Chief Operations Officer here at DSG, and I'm really excited for you guys to be here today. We've got a really good show sponsored by Distributor RX and our good friends at Cognitus. But before we get into the show, I want to talk to you about a couple things we're really excited about here at DSG, and this is our Distributor RX software. This is a software suite that has three components. One of is customer experience, right? This is hands down the best customer survey software available today. Unlike the traditional surveys you get, they give you an overall score. This tells you exactly where you need to be better. So if you have a customer experience issue in Cincinnati, there's an inventory problem in Phoenix, this is going to tell you exactly what to do and then what to do to go about and fixing it. So it's very specific, pinpoint exactly what you're doing well and exactly where you need to be better. The next one is Employee RX, and it's built on that same strong infrastructure and also gives you that exact information you need to improve on your customer or your employee experience. If you've got an issue within your AR department, it's going to tell you that. If it's got an issue within your customer service team, it's going to tell you that. So we're in this global war for talent, and this is the stuff that you need to tell you exactly what you need to improve. And then the last part of this is Demand RX. And this one's really powerful because it helps you estimate sales potential by product line and by account. So it helps you uncover those opportunities you might miss otherwise with traditional software. So it really helps your team really focus on what customers prioritize, where to spend their time, and more importantly, how do you grow sales? So I am thrilled to have my partner in crime with me, Mr. Brooks Hamilton. How you doing, Brooks?
Fantastic, Brian. How about yourself?
It's good to see you again, man.
Right?
Now that you're a happily married man of a week.
I am indeed. Couldn't be happier about that.
That's fantastic, my friend. That is fantastic. All right, there's a lot going on here. We got together last time, Brooks. You and I were talking about with Ian and Josh. We were talking about jobs and what AI was going to do to jobs, and was it going to take them or give them, or all the things around jobs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you fast forward earlier in the week, and we get these couple big announcements. One of which was Amazon saying 14,000 white collar jobs have to go.
Yeah.
And then the other part of their announcement a week earlier was 600,000 jobs. And it kind of freaked people out, I think. Like, what do you mean you're going to lay off 600,000 people? But you dig under the covers a little bit, and it's not 600,000 people that they're going to get rid of. It's 600,000 people they're not going to need anymore.
How do you
So
think
that's
they
the
look at it?
interesting thing. So let's talk about that one.
Yeah. How do you think they were threading the needle on that in terms of things we don't need versus roles we don't need versus people we're laying off?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really tricky thing because culturally they're going to have a problem with it, and they're going to get the level of productivity that they need with AI.
Yeah.
And a company like Amazon, they're not the distributors of, of what we're used to of kind of protecting jobs to a degree. They're going to get that productivity. So I think they're going to get to that 600,000.
I think you're right. And I don't think that they would have gone to go make a announcement like that
Mm-mm.
if they weren't sure that they were going to go do it. And they would not be sure if they were going to go do it if they hadn't already tried this, or at a minimum, um, feel like they have very firm chances of success of being able to run their business at high speed, and kind of breakneck process or set acceleration that they're known for, without those people. So this, I think, is another indicator of just how how AI is going from something that people feel like they might need in their business
Mm-hmm.
at some point to it is go time. It is now or never.
Yeah, it's the quiet part of automation, right? It's the flattening of the workforce.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to continue. And for distributors, that's what's coming.
Yes.
The volume, the number of people that handle the same amount of volume, it's now it kind of shifts from who do we hire to how do we make the people we have better, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine also each company is looking at this in terms of, hey, I am going to have to become more efficient, but I'm also going to hopefully grow in the process through this. And the way that they're going to grow is by driving other organizations who have not adopted out of business.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this in the stuff that we've done over the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 months or so about that, right? Is the starting of this wave that's happening. You mentioned it in in the last time we talked was it's getting kind of late. If you're not already involved, it's getting kind of late because you're not going to be able to catch up.
Yeah, that's right. It takes more than just buying software to catch up.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get into that a little bit more in our discussion today of just what it takes. But this Amazon news is big. And that's not the only news that we saw coming out recently either on this topic.
No, I mean you saw the information from Indeed and what that means. I mean, what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, first, would you mind going through just what the news was from Indeed for the audience?
So yeah, so well, they're going to have to start with the logic of the shrinking and evolving workforce, right? That's part of what they talked about is the workforce is going to evolve. And they say that's the outpace the automation is kind of outpacing that reskilling because I don't think people are talking about that enough. First of all, I mean, we've talked about this in the past that the word we're going to reprioritize people to more high valued work. It sounds great, but the automation is coming faster, and that are people ready for it?
Yeah.
And I don't know. And Indeed says that's what's happening. And I think we got to talk about what's the smartest first step that we can take to be able to make sure we're reskilling the people at a pace that helps with the automation.
Yeah. I think there are a few phases that we're going through in this AI transition. So one, we are going through a re-architecture of the economy. And step one is rewiring. So if you think about, I had old wiring in there, now I'm going to use the same paths, the same circuits, the same overall machinery, but I just want to update the wiring of it so everything runs a little bit faster. That's kind of where we've been slash where
Yeah.
we are. Then the next portion of this is people are going to begin to rethink, how do I get this process done to reach the same outcome, but potentially via a different method? So that is where we get into process redesign, which has all kinds of interesting aspects to it, both technological and from a people process standpoint. But I think where all of this is heading is the economy is going to move to a point where the difference in between one organization and another, basically organizations are going to be bound more tightly to one another.
Yeah.
Today, the main interface is people. I make a phone call, an order, a go to the procurement portal, whatever it might be. That's going to shift where much of the buying and the receiving is going to happen via agents by direction of a person. What that means is it binds one process to another more tightly. It makes the process run overall more quickly. And the end result is we will see portions of the economy begin to bifurcate, What I mean by that is there will be an AI enabled portion of the economy, and there will be the non AI portion. The non
Hmm.
AI portion may die, or it may just continue to exist, interacting with other portions of the economy that also prefer to work in that way. In some areas, that may be of value. So if I want to buy some shoes that were made custom for me by a cobbler in Italy, fantastic. I'm going to be perfectly willing to continue to employ that person in that fashion because that's the value proposition. But if the value proposition is I need widget A at a certain date or as fast as possible and maintain quality standards and make that process easy, that doesn't come down to an artisanal process like kind of how we have it today. These things are just simply going to become different portions of or different economies that exist within the same geographic region. So this is where we're going. And I would have said 2 months ago that that day is some point in the unknown future. But
Yeah.
given the acceleration that we've seen of capabilities of these models and systems, as well as the capabilities of these organizations to begin to use these revised systems, we're on a different trajectory at this point.
Yeah. So what areas do you feel like get hit first, right? If we're talking about specifically in distribution, because you got to start to think about what are the things that are most likely to be impacted. Where does my organization sit today? And then where do I stop hiring for?
Yeah. Yep.
Right? Because you're going to have to make those tough decisions at some point. So where do you feel like what areas of the business would, if you were advising a distributor to say, what should I pay attention to today?
Yeah. So to me, highest value area is working on the customer journey. And what I mean by that is everywhere that your organization touches a customer needs to be accelerated and smoothed out. Make it easy for someone to do business for you because there are many ways today it is not. Let's just consider like, hey, I've got a 100 part list. I need part crosses and I need a quote. For some organizations, that's going to take the day, maybe even the week. If they
Hmm.
have other things stacked up, what we're seeing out of some distributors is that's a 5 minute turnaround.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the list is, it's back in 5 minutes. That is improved customer journey. So imagine the other 100 points where that happens. If you were able to move up your win rate by just a quarter point, quarter of a percentage, it is going to more than pay for whatever the investment was. Those ROIs are high. Second, it improves your market position. Third, people in your organization are going to love making more money and having more things to do rather than sitting around worrying about where the axe is going to drop next.
Mm, yeah, I agree with that 100%. Because at some point, distributors are going to be at a point where everybody's delivering a quote back in 5 minutes,
Mhm.
right? It's not there now, and it's certainly not going to be here the next year, but it's going to happen.
Yes.
So the question then after that is, okay, well, how AI enabled in the rest of my business to keep pace? And now I think you turn people into not just your point, sitting and worried about where is AI going to take my job, to say, how can we use AI now in whatever the rest of the stuff that we do? In unlocking people's ability to think about the business in ways that they're not just thinking about what system I have to go to.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. How do I keep pace with the organization's growth
Hmm.
goals? And how can I rethink my process, rewire the process, redesign the process in order to support those business objectives and increase sales? So to me, that's the number one point to go do. We've seen a lot of activity around order entry at this point, but order entry is not the only game in town in terms of where value can be derived in the overall customer journey. So think a ton about that. That's great ROI. That's lower
Yeah.
resistance. And chances are you're not going to be putting people out of work. If anything, if you do this
Yeah.
correctly, you're going to be increasing your headcount.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about it, at least in my journey, when I started using large language models to the degree I'm using them now, it was one thing built on the next. It was I learned how to use them in a way that helped me in the moment. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, what about this? Or I could add it to this, or I could think about it this way. So I think you get that same effect when you enable people in that at that level to be able to say, okay, we're going to be an AI driven company. I need you to think about where can we use AI in the work that gets done to deliver value to customers. And people will come up with things that you just didn't imagine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those people who are closest to the problem
Yes.
and the domain, they're going to be the ones that are going to have all kinds of neat ideas. So if you can show them how to envision their ideas, how to bring them to life, at least to explain their idea to someone else, language models are a fantastic resource for that.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's an old Granger adage, man. It was go to the work and you'll get amazing things and you go see. And it's amazing what people will come up with. And now with the tools that are available, they'll deliver things you wouldn't even imagine.
Yeah. So, what a dichotomy of we see significant changes beginning in the labor market. And we also see that there are now tools to help people in organizations do their jobs and manage their functional areas in ways that they simply did not have before.
Yeah.
But that is only possible if you begin to jump in and use these tools on a very regular basis to get in the information flow.
And speaking of that, I'm very excited about this because you know me, I've gotten to large language models. Some would say overly heavily. My family would say you use them all the time. And it's probably true for a lot of things. But I'm really, really excited. We're introducing a new segment, Brooks, and you and I talked about this, and it's called Inside the Machine. And it's designed to be able to show the audience not just the large language models, but some of the capabilities that have existed and are even accelerating um, to a large degree. So we're going to do this on every show. We'll talk about a specific thing within large language models. But what I wanted to do was talk to you first about this thing it's called skills in Claude. So Claude is one of the LLMs that are out there, and I know everybody on this program, I'm sure, has dabbled in the large language models to some degree, right? Whether it's ChatGPT, whether it's Claude, whether it's Perplexity, whatever. You have dabbled them in at some point. But what's changing is the way we use them. And it kind of reminds me, I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but it reminds me a little bit of when the internet first started in play. You had to figure out like what's Google didn't even exist, but how do you go find the thing you're looking for?
Yeah,
And that's kind of where we're at with large language models. So once we understand how they work, then it opens the door up to a lot of other things. So what I want to be able to show you is a way to use a large language model to your benefit. Because one of the things, and I'm sure if you've used them, and it frustrated me until skills came about, was you literally could go ask the same question to the same large language model either any point in the day or at any point in the week, and you would get a slightly different answer.
uh-huh. Yeah,
From all the context that it understands. It's designed that way, right? It's designed to be flexible and it's designed to be able to be conversational and interpret and reason. So it's doing what we said it would do. But that's really not great for process,
true.
right? We're, born and bred distributors, process is everything. We've built SOPs over the course of 30 years, and trying to get people sometimes to stay on those SOPs is a little difficult, but it's really not hard for these large language models when you tell it what to do.
That's right.
So that's kind of where skills come in. Skills is a way for distributors to use a large language model, or anybody, if you want a standard repeatable process. And it's really the first time we're able to do that with a lot of these tools. So what I wanted to do is show you a quick example. I don't even think I've shown you this yet, Brooks, but it's a simple one for me. Literally last week they came out and I'm just learning how to use them properly. Um, but I think they're really cool and they've got a really wide range of applications for what we do to be able to build some standards. So I'm going to share with you my screen here.
Just as you're doing that Brian, just to provide a little bit of a noun to this of what is a skill. Um, a skill is essentially a packaged up prompt.
Yeah.
There's some similarity to it in terms of a custom GPT, but there are also some pretty significant differences. And the purpose of a skill is to provide some structure for the language model and also for the user to be able to say, hey, listen, I want you to do this thing. And instead of having to remember the way that you talked about it last time, you now have a handy reference that is going to get called by the language model, in this case, Claude, each time you need to go about repeating that process or steps.
That's amazing context. I'm a user, you're a professor. So that actually balances out nice. So what you're seeing here is a skill. And the way it gets built is you give it the context you want it to do, and you ask it literally to build you a skill. You don't have to have coding experience. You don't have to be an IT person. You just have to know what you want. So just for context, because it takes about 5 or 6 minutes to create, and I laugh at myself because it's taken me 5 or 6 minutes, and it's like, why is it more instant? But here we are. But essentially, what I did was I gave it the information that I need to create emails. So we have, I talked about earlier, our demand RX, and we have a way that we talk about it. Here's what it is. Here's how it works. Here's why it's important. All the things that you would use if you were communicating with a customer about demand RX. So you can see this is what I've given it in terms of context. All right. And then what I told it to do is I literally just said, build me an email skill that uses this information so that when I craft emails from DSG to potential customers about demand RX, that's all I did. And it went through and created a skill. And what it did was it gave me here what they created. There's 5 email templates from a cold outreach all the way to a post demo follow up. It's telling me exactly what it built in terms of an architecture, the context it's given it. So all the different things that it's using, right? So I'll give you a little behind the scenes. This is the detail behind it. So this is inside the machine. So it literally went through and read it and said, here are the value propositions. Here's the qualified outcomes. Oh, by the way, here's the email structure templates that I want to create. So it created it for the very different scenarios. And by the way, if you didn't like what it produced, you could tell it to do things differently. But the point is, it created all this for me in about 6 minutes.
That's fantastic.
Now, yeah, it's mind blowing the first time you see it because it gives you all the code and you kind of geek out on the code a little bit, but um, it's really amazing on what it creates.
And just
But
to be clear, what you've done here is you have used a skill which comes with Claude in order to
yes.
create another skill. So you just provided a couple lines for direction, some
Mhm.
context, and then it built the skill for you.
Yes. And what's important about the way I built this one is now any salesperson in our company who sends an email to a customer about demand RX, it's going to do it the same way. It's going to use the same data. It's going to build it the same way. So what simply happens after that is I'm in Claude generally because it's automatically in the system. It automatically remembers the skill. And I told it to do. Use the X skill to do a cold outreach for this customer. So I'm going to copy that into my chat. It's a COO of a $150 million customer who's struggling with account prioritization. And it's going to go think about it for a couple seconds. And it's going to tell you that it's pulling in the skill. So it's going through and reading what we built for it. And now it's going to craft my email for me.
That's excellent.
And it's pulling all the data that's necessary. The interesting thing as this finishes up is it tells you what it leveraged in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling you that it used the COO. It's telling a low friction. So it's giving you why it did what it did.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to point out in this that I think is really cool is it provided several templates. So you just needed to set the context of, hey, this is the size of the organization, the role, and the objective. And then it selected the appropriate template to use based on that
Right. Right.
and generated the email. And so we can imagine something similar to this, like I'm in a stock out situation. I have several groups, basically constituents that I need to notify. I need to talk to people inside my organization. I need to maybe perhaps notify a customer, and I might need to, in fact, it might even be more than one. And then I also need to contact the manufacturer.
Yeah.
All of these are templates. And so really you just need to kind of fully consider what is common to this process. And then you can begin filling this in piece by piece. So what is the decision? Maybe there are several outcomes. How do I think of it? How do I look through various applications? How do I communicate my decision?
Yeah. So you can see now it's moving towards a great party trick tool to this thing can help me personally, so I can find information on it. And now you'll be able to build a process around it. So it's making that transition to being useful rather than just something, that you use every now and then. It's got business value all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what we're seeing Anthropic move towards is a new operating system, a new
Yeah.
layer of abstraction to technology, which is I have MCPs, which are MCP servers, which are essentially tools and things that allow me to contact data. I have skills that provide guidance on how I should have this happen. And then we're also seeing some work in the interface. So really, um, this is beginning to show just how um, where might we go with these tools in hand,
Yeah. And all in about 3 months.
all in about 3 months, right?
That's the crazy thing is it's coming that fast. All right. Well, I'd like to shift a little bit and welcome our guest, Jeff Van Pelt, who's the practice lead for consumer products and wholesale distribution with Cognitus. Jeff, welcome, sir.
Get my video going here, Brian. And we'll be first of all, a lot to unpack there, guys. That was a fascinating discussion and covered a lot of territory. So both from a practical sense and then, I love that skill conversation about how you can then augment that and it is ongoing and perpetuates itself. Skills build upon skills. So it's a fantastic conversation that you guys had. Um, Real briefly, I'll just give and
Yeah.
introduce myself and Cognitus. So, Jeff Van Pelt, as you mentioned, I'm the practice lead for consumer industries, which includes wholesale distribution, retail, and consumer products. Uh, Not to bore you with my background, but I was probably one of the first data scientists back in the 1980s. I was a data geek from day one. We used
Nice.
to we used to call it market research, and then they said now it's consumer insights, and it gave us a much cooler platform within the organization. But over time, I moved into the technology space. Worked with SAP, leading some of their practices around consumer industries. And landed at Cognitus. And Cognitus, for those that don't know us, we're a digital transformation consulting firm, which is code word for systems integrator. But it sounds better saying digital transformation. But we focus on mid-market, and specifically, we focus on a number of industries, and we don't try to be everything to everybody. So wholesale distribution, along with the other industries I represent, are kind of near and dear in our bread and butter. So I'm very engaged in the distribution community through NAW and other resources, and always happy to be part of DSG's conversations, and appreciate the opportunity to kind of have a little dialogue, because you guys brought up a bunch of stuff that raised a lot of questions for me. So I might be asking the questions to you, Brian, instead of the other
Yeah,
way
that's all right. It's
around.
all good. Brooks is the smart one here, so that's all good.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not going to give any roll tide comments behind you.
Well, you can. It's okay. They're very welcomed.
Okay. Well, at a later date.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So glad to be with you guys.
Thanks for joining us, Jeff. All right. I think we have really interesting questions to bring up around AI journey. And there were some fascinating studies recently released, Wharton, MIT, as well as the experience that you bring to this, Jeff and Brian. But I'm curious, where, in your perspective, where are most wholesale distributors today when we think about their AI journey? And just to kind of simplify this, maybe we can put it into a few groups. Are they experimenting? Are they beginning to scale and have identified some particular use cases that they feel like they want to invest in? Or are we seeing them going as far out as making organizational and personnel and maybe tool and process changes of true transformation?
Yeah, I'll give you the view from the lens that I look at my customers, right? So again, we tend to deal with more of the mid-market companies. So from a journey perspective, it's much more of a piloting activity. We're looking at, where can I, and can start out very simple through just like RPA, right? And how do I do things to just kind of take care of repetitive tasks, right? But then there's also things, that they're looking at in tools, whether it be SAP or third-party tools like a Data Extreme or PriceFX or Resilient. They have business specific benefit areas that they see that they can drive value through AI. So what I'm seeing a lot is, and then we can talk a little about the embedded AI within SAP as a platform, and how that is going to manifest itself for customers as they move into those cloud environments. But where I really see there's a slow move to kind of the scalability phase, but I haven't seen anybody really turn it all the way to bright, if you want to say that,
Yeah.
with the exception of just different tools that they have purchased that have embedded AI capabilities to help them automate different processes. But to your point, it's a journey. And again, we're talking about companies that are working on spreadsheets. They've got pick slips on clipboards, and
Yeah.
getting things. AI is still, but to your point, and I was listening, very intently to your conversation. And it brought up a, quote from another old guy, Lee Iacocca, who you're probably too young to know, but he was former chairman of Chrysler. He said, "Lead follower, get out of the way." And that's kind of the thing that I see is going to be the mindset. So, I think we might start talking about what's the leadership mindset of companies trying to get into AI. And it's like, and Brian, you brought it up as well. It's not a matter of, if, it's a matter of when, and you have to start somewhere. So
Yeah, I think I've seen similar to that, experimenting, you know, specific process within an organization, whether it's, you know, order automation, quote automation, those kinds of things. Um, I haven't seen the scale that we're talking about. I don't think that
Right.
that's, I think people are ready for that scale yet. And Brooks and I were talking about this earlier. There's a level of trust that that's just industry is just built on, whether it's trust in
Yeah.
partnerships, trust in customer base, trust together. And it's part of it is, do I trust this new technology to turn over to my business?
Hmm.
There's a
No, but
lot,
I think you bring up a great point because, one of the inherent benefits of when you do go all the way to this is the tying together of your ecosystem, right? So you have
yeah,
visibility into all the different moving parts of your business, and you can use, predictive AI, whatever you want to call it, to orchestrate that system, right? And today it's very disjointed. And so I think to the extent, what I'm seeing is, and you talked about it earlier in your conversation with Brooks, is what I'm advocating for customers is to look at the value it's going to drive to your customer relationship and move
yeah,
backwards from there. Okay. Because the rest doesn't matter. Whether you're setting up a marketplace, doing other things, how are you going to better serve your customer and differentiate? And AI candidly is one of the ways to do that. So I think that's where we start.
Yeah, when I think about these three, um, so many companies are in the early stage. I'm going to
Mhm.
pilot, I'm going to experiment, or
Mhm.
even the earlier stage than that, which is I'm not sure, and I want to find out, but we're
Mhm.
not there. One of the surprises for me coming out of the recently released study from Wharton Business School on AI adoption is
Mhm.
one, the adoption rates of language models among decision makers is actually now very high for
Mhm.
daily usage. We have kind of talked to people like who is using these. Like at conferences, we'll commonly ask like, "All right, raise your hands if you have used it, or you're familiar with it."
Mhm.
And generally, it's like 80% of people have used a language model regularly, like once a month. But once we get to like, are you using it daily? It drops off to about 5 to 10%. And what we're seeing in the rest of the economy, that number is 70 to 80% of leaders are using it daily. That's really different than a year ago. So I think that kind of sets a bar now for if you're a leader in an organization, should be using this on a daily basis or not, you choose. But just
Mhm.
know that other people who are in similar roles are. And
Yeah.
the difference maker on that is it takes a little bit of time to get familiar with doing the things using these tool sets.
Mhm.
So it's not like you begin using it the next day and now you know all there is to know because you bought the software. There's some
yeah,
thinking
Right.
that's involved in this.
No, 100%. And you bring up, kind of that leadership mindset, right? And those are some of the things that are going to determine success or failure relative to whether your company's going to benefit and derive value from AI investments. And it's got to have somebody that's got some sort of vision in terms of what's the business outcome that I'm going to be trying to drive. And the way you best demonstrate that business outcome is by utilizing the technology yourself, right? So you just talked about you've got the 80% that's here, but then, we all know running different and wholesale distribution tend to lag behind the curve in technology a little bit. But when you've got those
just a little.
different, just a little, yeah. But when you've got somebody that's got a vision that then can propagate that throughout the organization to drive towards the business outcomes. And the other thing, part of being when I talk about the leadership mindset too, is this, again, this is not an IT project. This is a business
Yes.
transformation project. So go in with that in mind relative to what's going to drive your business. And the other thing is, don't overthink it. dip your toes in the water, have some quick wins, get some value. You don't have to have a full-blown roadmap day one. I mean, yeah, I'm coming from the ERP world, right? Where
Better
you've
have
got
one.
you've got, but it's a different animal, right? And we talked
Yeah.
about this prior to the show. It's like for a wholesale distributor, there's so many different choices that they can make relative to what types of technology, because anything with a .ai after its name now is, they're showing up at your doorstep, right? So they need to understand and have companies like, Brooks's company come in and help them say, okay, here's this menu of items. And I'll talk about SAP as a platform in a little bit, but there are a lot of solutions that meet specific needs for a wholesale distributor that don't need you to fully re-implement an ERP, right? So this doesn't have to be a, 2-year project. It's like there's capabilities that allow you to get value quickly. And, and we recommend those ourselves. We're in the business of helping SAP sell ERP, but we're also there to advocate for the benefits of our distributor customers to say, here's some things that you can do to get off the ground today that don't require you to, have a full-blown
Yeah.
18-month project.
I think that's smart. I mean, I think back, where do you start? And it becomes, I don't think you start with tools at all. I think you start with understanding what parts of the business are just repeatable that you can try to transform. And don't
Mhm.
pick the whole thing, right? I think I said this earlier is don't try to transform everything at once. Pick one process and measure it and see how it goes. Start.
Yeah,
But
those are pretty simple to figure out if a distributor, right? Where's the leaky bucket, right?
yeah,
So, and those are pretty self-evident usually with every distributor you talk to. It's around margin. So, uh,
deeply speaking.
Yeah, I want to
uh,
take you back to something you talked about earlier that I really hit for me, which was the leadership mindset.
Mhm.
And part of this is like, how is AI driven within organizations today? And great other point from the Wharton study is 2 years ago, it was multiple committees that had unclear mandates, but we're all kind of trying things. It might be at a departmental level or whatnot. That's really changed in the last 2 years.
mhm,
So the two big changes are one, that decision making is now consolidating down to one of two things, either a single committee or now in 2025, the new role of chief AI officer,
mhm.
which is brand spanking new. I still have some big questions about whether that's a role. Um, but the at least this Wharton study, and I'm don't know if there's some selection bias going on, reported that 60% of the organizations that they spoke to, economy wide, so finance, travel, wholesale distribution, manufacturing, full economy was 60%.
Mm,
60% of organizations have at least a fractional chief AI officer. I don't think that any distribution organization I've spoken to so far has one.
Mm.
Certainly there are some leaders, but the point that you all made earlier about this isn't just a technology activity. This is the business activity. It looks to us like Amazon's betting the farm on this thing, as
oh yeah.
are a number of other companies. So I think your point there, Jeff, is spot on of the leadership approach that's going to need to be taken to this and the vision that's involved is material. It's not just onesie twosie. But that's kind of, hey, that's a big deal. That deserves a lot of thought. But on the flip
Mhm.
side is you don't have time to go work this out over 4 quarters and talk to advisors and run it through the board and blah 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 to get started.
Right.
Like, do something today because it's
Yeah.
going to take you some time to get oriented to
Yeah.
where the opportunities are for your organization. And this is something I'd like to kind of come back around on with something you mentioned earlier as well of um, how is how should organizations view what the to be expectation is for larger packages like SAP. And obviously, you're not speaking for
Mhm.
SAP, but if maybe you can give us just a little bit of thought of how you all and SAP kind of play and what the vision is for, hey, here's how I should expect AI to maybe show up in the newer versions of these applications.
No, and happy to do that, Brooks. And one thing I just wanted to circle back on was, the whole notion of, knowing where you're going, knowing where you need to be. And I just wanted to, so I cover multiple industries. 60% of people having a digital AI officer is not the world that I'm seeing. So whether they're hidden under the moniker of digital transformation office or whatever, but there's no clear role. Plenty of data scientists, don't get me wrong. So data science has been an exploding category within a bunch of companies, including distribution. But let's talk back to SAP, right? So, so we've talked about there are solutions that people, distributors in particular, can implement that are going to provide, immediate business value relative to order management, pricing,
Hmm.
inventory, et cetera, right?
Yep.
So, and those serve a great purpose. A lot of them actually partner with SAP, so they're complementary. They're not competitive.
Yep.
Um, what I will say with the new technology with SAP, which they've announced, probably a year ago, but really put it into full service and post Sapphire is this whole notion of cloud ERP and what they'll call the business suite, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things for companies on an AI journey with SAP is within that business suite, there are agents across different lines of business, whether that be procurement, supply chain, finance, what have you. So that's the business AI that you'll hear SAP talk about. And then sitting on top of that is the agentic or conversational AI, where you can ask human questions
Yep.
to probe those different agents. Now, the value for customers and the thing, irrespective of whether you're looking at SAP or whether you're trying to take care of your own business today, is it connects you to your customers in different aspects of your business, from a business process standpoint, to be able to assimilate that data and pull it out without having to have a like PhD to do so. But
Yeah.
it does embed that technology. And the other component then, it also, they've, and not to get into the tech weeds, but so they've got the business data cloud, which is going to be the source of all that data feeding these agents, which via Databricks is going to include third-party data. Now, that third-party data could be weather, it could be demographics, it could be
Mhm.
news, it could be anything. And, so taking those types of data sources, combining them with your typical transaction ERP data, right? Just because I can ask a question about what my inventory is on widget Y for customer X, that's not really providing me value. That's just like
Yep.
just providing me an
Right.
answer that I don't have to type in a code. But
Yeah.
where it gets different is where I have those agents then being able to talk across business function to provide me with a answer, whether that's a best suggested order, whether it's, rerouting distribution, and a lot of different things that I can do relative to understanding the different dynamics really across the business. And that's, I don't know if that answered your question, but so for distributors, the SAP thing, it's going to be a platform vis-a-vis, if you want to stick with, you've got a legacy system, not sure you're ready for a full-blown digital transformation, which by the way, now that it's cloud, we've cut those implementations down to like 8 to 9 months. So they're not like 3 years, which is good. Um, but you have the option to dip your toe in the water with some of these other things and capabilities that are going to provide short-term wins for your business, and then have a longer-term view about how, a platform is going to play into your long-term future. Because at the end of the day, you know, distributors of any size, they want to scale, right? And they want to be able to do more with less. And platforms are going to be the thing that helps them drive towards those objectives.
So
Because
what I'm
go
kind of hearing
ahead.
is um, there are the way that we should begin to look at ERP is they're the holders of great data assets that are directly related to my business. There are there's other data which we want to kind of certify and say, yes, this is good data that's related to my business, but maybe data I don't own. But it is certified to be used, and then to lower the integration cost of being able to access this data and answer questions or carry out processes is really where the ERPs of the future are going to be heading in terms of capabilities, as well as to be able to set up and operate increased process automation via agents and other workflow management type systems.
Yeah, yeah. So it goes a little bit beyond workflows, but yeah, the agent-based things definitely add on top of, SAP's traditionally been, an integrated system, but now it takes the different business questions that people are asking cross-company, right? That used to be sitting in silos. Now it can
Yeah.
combine that data in a contextual way. So it's not like you walk into an S&OP meeting and everybody's got a spreadsheet and they're arguing over whose numbers are right. So
Time honored tradition. Great, Brian. Where do you want to take us next?
All right, one last thing. We got a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure we get this in. But talked a lot about leadership, right, and where that's at. So if you had to say what's the one big leadership mindset change that has to happen before the end of this year? And then end of this year's coming fast. So like tomorrow.
yeah, yeah. My company keeps me aware of its Q4, so
Yeah.
I
That's
get
a time
that.
honored tradition too. Yes.
Yeah, I mean the biggest leadership mindset is just get started. It's not understand where you're going to get the business. We talked about business value a lot, and I'm a firm believer that unless you know where you're going, you're never going to get there. So get started, start small, pilot, but don't get into pilot purgatory, right? Where you're just piloting everything and you have no results. But that's where I start and encouraging the team members underneath you to, just
Yeah.
the demo that you gave, right? Um, see, people can do that stuff and just invest in those people's futures because as you mentioned, whether we believe it or not, and the white collar jobs and Amazon, the 14,000 one day and the 600,000 you mentioned before, truth is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And so to preserve your organization, you have to upskill those people to actually take an interest. So that's my own 2 cents.
Love that. Brooks, what do you think?
I think Jeff's totally right. I think this is a matter of bias towards action. Don't need to know all where the road is taking you, but boy, do you need to start moving on this and ensuring that your full executive team is on the same page and are daily users of these tools because this it is game on. There's no longer time to sit on the sidelines.
Yes.
Look for vendors that can be good partners and good thought leaders is I think another thing in terms of the software tools, the integrators that you're bringing into the environment, they need to be on that same page.
And you guys are the smartest guys in the room because I agree with that, but I also have one thing to add. And we talked about it earlier, and that's go to the work, talk to the people who are actually doing the work, and empower them to use the tools that are out there to help build the capability. They will find things and introduce you to things that you had zero idea about.
Couldn't agree more. Bring them along for the ride.
Amen. All right. This has been a fascinating conversation, guys. And we're just getting started with this whole jobs idea and what's going on there. And we're just getting started with our industry and what we're doing. So we'll continue to have this conversation, but let's appreciate you spending some time today. But before we go, One last thing I want to share is you get to see my smiling face again tomorrow as we do the state of art analytics to understand performance. And Kristen from White Cup is going to be there, myself, and the great Ian Heller will be the moderator of the program. So we're looking forward to that tomorrow. And then we've got one coming right on its heels, and that's how to take data and how to drive that transformation from that chaos to making sure it's your competitive advantage. So appreciate the time, everybody. Hope you had enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you all real soon. See you, fellas, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thanks,
Brad.
Brian. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.